Hey, it's Brett. I wanted to record a video explaining Git rebasing and Git interactive rebasing, which are these two really helpful tools within Git to rewrite history when working on a branch to better reflect the intended reality of your commit history. So I made a little diagram to help explain it. Let's say you have a branch called main, which also might be called master. Like in the code example I'm going to show, it'll be called master, but let's say you have a main branch. And each of these circles represents a commit. They're different colors to represent different commits. They would each have their own individual commit SHA in Git. So you have purple commit, and then you have this reddish commit. Imagine you branched off of the red commit and have a new branch, which is just called branch here. Rebasing would allow you to use the word rebase. You would say, I want to rebase my branch, called branch, on top of the main branch. And what this would do is it would say, instead of yellow and blue in this new branch pointing towards the reddish commit, it would rebase it and place these commits in front of or on top of the latest commit in the branch you're rebasing on top of. So what it does is it pulls in the latest commit, like the green commit, to ensure that the code that you've written on your branch is compatible and tested against, well, maybe not necessarily compatible, but is the test suite considers those changes, the green commit within it. Because if you didn't rebase it, then that green commit could break your code. So then when you merged in your branch, that yellow and blue commit would get merged in to the main branch and might have impacts that are unforeseen. So then other alternatives would be to merge this green commit into your branch so that it's present there without rebasing. So that's an alternate strategy, but rebasing I think is a really nice, useful workflow and something that I do regularly. And I want to just show some examples of it, and it's something that gets easier with time and practice. Quick forewarning is that if the green commit changed files that the yellow and or blue commit changed on your branch, when you rebase, there may be merge conflicts, and you'll have to work to fix those merge conflicts. I would like to do an episode just on merge conflict fixing because it can be overwhelming at first, but I think once you get the hang of it, it's not so bad. But let's look at an example of rebasing. So I have this converty gem, it's a Ruby gem, but whatever programming language you're working with, this won't matter. If we do git log main, or it's actually called master, you'll see we have these commits. The one to note here is 6a3be, and these are some other recent commits. I'm on this branch called grams. Let's do git log on grams. You'll see we have 18e1, and then that's 6a3be. So this grams branch deviates from master in that it's a few commits behind. So if we did, I'll just git log master again just to show you. So these three commits here, the latest three are not in my grams branch. And it's important to me while working on it on branches to have the latest code. So all you would do to rebase would be you type git rebase, and then the branch that you want to rebase your current branch on top of. So I would just say main. If you fetched from GitHub or your remote, right, whatever your origin is, you could git fetch origin, and then you could git rebase origin, that branch name too. But I have that latest code on my computer, so I don't need to fetch from origin, and I don't need to rebase on the origin master. I can just do git rebase master. So you run that, it says successfully rebased and updated refs heads grams. So now if we do git log on grams, which is the current branch, so I don't need to pass it in, you'll see that add support for grams commit now pulls in these three other commits that weren't present. And that is a really simple rebase, right? It takes the commits that before there was a branch and off of a different commit, and now it is on top of the latest commit. When working by yourself on a project, this has use, which I'll get to more in the interactive rebasing portion, But when you're working with a team, this is really, really valuable and useful for a few different reasons. One is that if you have multiple teammates working on one large code base, you want to have their latest code so that that business logic or those bug fixes or those features are on your code that you're working on locally. So you'll periodically, while you're working on something, likely want to rebase your branch on top of the latest main branch or master branch, or maybe you have a develop branch. That helps ensure that you're working against the latest code and there's not drifting. And by rebasing more frequently, you can fix your merge conflicts if any were to arise. The further you deviate or stay behind, the more difficult it is sometimes to catch up if there are a lot of changes there. Also, with GitHub and other source control management hosts, for merging pull requests, it might require that your code is rebased or has all the latest code from the main branch in it. So that can be enforced in GitHub too, which is quite useful if that's something that matters. But imagine you have 4 or 5 different teams or developers working on a code base. Rebasing regularly is quite important. And you can rebase branches on other branches. You can have branches of branches that rebase off a different branch. Like, you can really go to town with this, but it's at the most simple level and most frequent level. I think a lot of it is rebasing off the main branch to keep your in-progress branch up to date. So that's rebasing. The command, right, is just git rebase and then the branch you want to rebase on top of. If you rebase again, it'll keep doing it, but it won't rewrite the history because it doesn't need to. Something worth noting with rebasing is that you are rewriting history, so you are changing the commit SHAs of the commits that are on your branch, and they are now like new pointers or like new references, which means that after you rebase, you have to force push, so it's dangerous at times. And you don't want to rebase your master branch, your main branch, whatever. And GitHub has protections to prevent you from force pushing that up, but it's the kind of thing where you would rebase, force push your changes up because you're overwriting what was previously the history. So there's some risk and danger with this, but so that's something to keep in mind and be aware of. Now let's talk about interactive rebasing. So rebasing is just taking these commits, putting them on top of or in front of the other branch. That's fine and has use. But something I love doing, especially while we're working something, is this interactive rebasing with squashing commits and rewriting the history to better reflect the reality of what I want to merge in. Because you're building this history of documentation of changes, what changed and why. And sometimes when you're working on something and figuring it out, you might have work in progress commits or WIP commits that you actually don't want to be reflected in your final process. Like, I view branches as, especially when we're working on something, as a sort of rough draft. And sometimes it's helpful to have teammates review a rough draft to get feedback. And then just how you would revise a piece of writing, like an author might revise a piece of writing before it gets published, I view branches and interactive rebasing as a way to revise before publishing. And then when you merge in your branch, that's publishing it. And you have this history and this story of your commits that you want to stand the test of time. And what interactive rebasing does is, let's say you have this series of commits, you have your branch, which I've just called branch, and it has 3 commits, and it's off of green commit. Interactive rebasing on top of main places your commits off of the latest on main, so now it is yellow, and then you can also squash 3 commits down into 1 commit. You could squash 2 into 1 and you could have 3 commits, squash 1 of them into the other, then have 2 commits, right? You can really manipulate the commits, change their messages, and combine them or separate them out as needed. And it's a really powerful, useful tool. And I'll show you an example of it. And again, when you make these changes, you'd have to force push them up. Let's say we have, our grams branch is tough because it's been rebased off of master. So let's go and we'll create our branch that will rebase and squash. So let's go and we'll check out this commit, which is an older commit. I'm gonna make a new branch. This is git checkout b grams take 2. We'll just give it a different name. I'm going to cherry pick this commit from the other branch because I don't want to code that again. So now that I've cherry picked that commit, which cherry picking just lets you take a commit on another branch or a commit just from anywhere and place it on your current branch. It's quite useful. But you'll see here, I cherry picked 12b34, but then when I get logged, it's AE8952, etc. It changes the commit. So it's not the same commit, it just cakes it and duplicates it. So it's not the same commit as before, they're just different. So it's not moving it, it's copying it, which I think is important to note. But you'll see here, if we git log master, we have these changes. But if we git log, we don't have those last 3 commits, just like before. But now I want to make some other changes that will make some changes for the commits that we're going to squash down. So sometimes it's useful when you're fixing bugs. Sometimes it's useful when you're expanding upon something. Maybe it's something like we'll add support for kilograms. We'll say how many ounces in a kilogram, which is, we would take it and multiply it by, and I would add tests normally, but let's not worry about that for right now because it's not relevant to what we're doing right now. So if we do git add p and look at the changes, we have kilograms. Okay, let's quickly run our tests, make sure we didn't break anything. Okay, the tests pass, so that's nice. Now let's commit it, and we'll say add support for kilograms. And I'm going to leave, well, yeah, we'll do that. Right quick commit, create that commit. That's interesting. We'll ignore that for right now. Those are unrelated changes. If we get log now, we see we have add support for grams, add support for kilograms. I don't necessarily want those to be 2 different commits. So what I want to do is squash them down into one that just adds support for grams and family, which I think is a useful commit because they're really not too different from another. And that's where you can kind of tell if you have these changes where maybe they're dependent on each other, maybe it should be one commit. If they do 2 separate things or it makes a huge commit, maybe you want to break it up. And that's beyond the scope of this video, but there are times for, like, crafting a good commit is its own topic. But so what you would do here is you would say git rebase I, the I stands for interactive, and you do master. And maybe you fetch the latest master and rebase on top of origin master, but we have the latest master again, so no need to do that. But when you do the I, it opens up this new interface that might be a little overwhelming at first, but I think I can walk through and show you it pretty good. So you have the commits, they're in reverse order, or they're in the order they were created. So kilograms comes after the grams. And you have these commands that you can run. P for pick means use it. R for reword means edit that commit message. Edit means use the commit, but you can stop and change the code and amend it, which that has a place beyond the scope of this episode. We'll focus on just squashing in this one. Fix up is like squash, but it doesn't keep the message, so that's kind of nice. We got some other things too that aren't necessarily useful right now, but for us in this case. But for us, we're going to just do a simple squash. And so you can change that to S, or you can write out squash, whatever you want. We'll make it S. And that's going to say, take this commit and squash it into here. And I'll show examples after this of having multiple commits and reordering them and that kind of thing, which can introduce merge conflicts, but I think this is a good intro. So if you write and quit this, like you would a commit message, because it's using Vim, write and quit it, it's going to start the interactive rebasing process, which goes through the commands that you've outlined step by step. It says this is a combination of 2 commits. This is the first one, add support for grams. This is the second one. Because we squashed it, it keeps both the commit messages, and you can edit them. If you did fix up, it would just discard the other commit messages. So let's just say for grams and relatives, supports grams and kilograms. And then I'll just delete this. These are comments, so they'll be ignored, but I'll just delete them. And then here's our commit message. So now if we get log, you'll see we have a new commit that is the combination of the last two instead of two separate commits. And that commit adds grams and kilograms. So we've effectively squashed two commits into one commit. Sometimes that's nice if you have things like, we'll do something kind of that I wouldn't do, but we'll just do it here, which is like, we'll just say whip, which I see quite a lot, is you have that whip. Then if you git rebase interactive master, and which branch you rebase interactively on is like up to you. There are implications of choosing different branches and stuff, so that's something to think about. But I always just go off of the main branch or the master branch. That usually works well. You could do F to fix it up, write and quit it. You see it didn't bring the commit message change, but now that whip commit is gone. And let's do one more thing where we kind of like, I'll just make some quick changes that are unrelated. We'll just do like, save that, we'll commit it, update readme, and then let's go and we'll change something relating to grams, which we'll say is something like we'll just say like milligrams, or no, what's another? Kilograms, I don't know. We'll just leave this here. We'll just pretend that mg is a thing. We'll add that, we'll commit it, and then let's do our git rebase interactive. And we'll just do master. So now we have 3 commits. I just want 2 of them, and we want mg to be part of the family for grams and relatives. So by changing the line that this pick is on, it now reorders it. So this is the new order, and then if we squash it, this says squash add mg into this commit, while the update readme will stand. And then let's also reword update readme to make it a better commit message. So this is like, you can combine these directives. You write and quit it, and then it starts it. So now we have this first commit message, grams, kilograms, and micrograms, which is fake and not real, but we'll just assume, I don't know if micrograms is real, to be honest. So, but that's irrelevant to this topic. Write and save that. Now it moves on to the next commit, which we have said to reword, which is update readme, and we'll just say update readme. We'll say remove steal comment from readme. Now if we get log, we have 2 commits with our updated commit message. If we look at this commit, where we add support for grams and relatives, you'll see that I have grams, kilograms, and micrograms. And those are like the most common approaches. I'd say is squashing, just rebasing in general to get your code up to date with the latest changes that your teammates have made. And then this interactive rebasing and squashing is a way to take your work in progress, your draft of your branch that you're working on, and clean it up, add more details of the commit messages, squash things together. Something that is pretty common is like, be working on something, commit it, come back to it later, or maybe you're testing in your browser and you find a bug, so then you want to fix it up, but you don't need a commit to fix the bug that's separate from the commit that you used to introduce it that hasn't been merged into the main code yet. Like before someone else on your team sees it, you can just clean it up and have that commit message be one commit. This topic in some ways feels like a Pandora's box where it opens up this entire concept and ideas of rewriting history and manipulating history that I fear would like really expand the scope of this beyond what I want to. But and there's a lot more things you can do with rebasing and squashing that is useful, but I think these are the 2 most used and most like daily use things when it comes to this, and I'd like to explore more and share more about this in the future. But I hope this helps, and the importance of creating a useful Git history for you and your teammates is very important. And it's very important to have your code run against the latest code in your main branch from the CI to personal and like team confidence. So yeah, hope this is useful. Best of luck with your rebasing journey. You can always abort the rebase. In the middle of it, you can always, if you push up your branch before you rebase, you can always reset to it and get back to what you had. There's also the git ref log, which can get you back. So there are usually ways to get out of a situation you got yourself in. But be aware, it can be dangerous, but I think it's ultimately really useful. So there we go. Thanks so much, and hope that helps you out.